Drawing hair has always been a challenge. It's always been one of the most difficult parts of a drawing for me. I could tell what I needed to improve on, but I didn't necessarily know how. Until recently, within the last couple of months, when I started taking improving my art more seriously. In this video, I'll be sharing what I've been doing and continually learning to help me improve how I draw hair. Hi everybody, how's it going? Hope you're all well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Leo and I'm an artist. I focus on black and white art using graphite, charcoal, and ink. And you can catch me live streaming art on Twitch every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. First, a little bit of a backstory. I don't have any academic or formal training in drawing or fine art. I've always just taken up drawing as a hobby and whenever I have free time. I put a lot of hours just drawing portraits of people because that's just what I've enjoyed doing. And so naturally, that's just what I've worked on improving whenever I drew anything. I learned drawing from experience and from putting a lot of hours into it. And I mean a lot. I also like to save a lot of posts from other artists on Instagram, and I try to break down how they achieve a certain look or a certain style, and I try to implement them into my drawings and put my own spin on it. Whenever I save posts on Instagram, I try to look at what it is I specifically like about the image. So it could be anything from how they shade or any extra details that they like to add, or maybe they're using mixed media, which would give a completely different effect as opposed to if I was just to stick with using a graphite or charcoal pencil. Because I didn't have a specific step-by-step process of how I drew hair, my method was through trial and error. So the result that I was getting was hit or miss, especially when it came to the proportions. But what was consistent about my early drawings was how stiff the hair looked. It tended to look rough and unrefined. You couldn't really tell what texture it's supposed to be. Hair is supposed to look soft. It's supposed to have flow with the shape and the direction that it's going. It's also supposed to look like it can bounce. My style tends to lean towards the realistic side as opposed to stylized. It doesn't really make sense for me to draw every single strand of hair. With enough time, you can achieve a hyper-realistic effect, but I'm not really going for a photographic hyper-realistic look. So I started looking at hair as one complex shape, a 3D object with a lot of planes. Instead of drawing every single strand of hair, you'd want to shade according to the tones and the values. Be mindful of your light source, and you want to map out where your shadows, midtones, and highlights are. I like to start by shading in the shadows first. I find that knowing where the darkest parts are in your drawing helps nail down the contrast right away. You want to use a wide value of dark, medium, and light shading and highlights in order to achieve a bold contrast in your composition. This is chiaroscuro. Depending on how complex the shape of the hair is, you'd want to break it down by looking at each tuft of hair as smaller individual planes within the overall shape. Once I'm happy with how the shadows, midtones, and highlights transition and blend with each other, I like to start adding indications of strands, showing the direction and the flow of the hair. Towards the end, I like to add these little flyaway hairs, as I like to call them. I feel like it adds to the detail on the drawing, and it's good to have a mix of thin and thick clumps of hair. It makes the hair look more dynamic as opposed to just having one thickness all throughout the hair. At this point, I go back and forth with blending and shading and fixing the contrast wherever it's needed. In terms of tools that have helped me the most with hair, I use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser. I have both the rectangular and the smaller round tip version. I use both depending on how big the area I need to erase, and it's usually for the highlights. I also like to use a kneadable eraser instead of a regular vinyl eraser. The kneadable eraser is just more versatile. You can mold it into different shapes and sizes, and it doesn't leave a mess like when you rub a vinyl eraser on paper. So I by no means feel like I'm there yet in terms of my skill level with drawing hair. I do feel like I've improved in some areas, like in the contrast and drawing more round with curved strokes instead of drawing too many straight lines on the hair. Here are some YouTube channels that I find are very helpful with leveling up your hair drawing even further. Proco has consistently the best drawing tutorials on YouTube. He has a great video on how to draw hair, and it'll help you understand how to look at hair as a 3D shape and how light interacts with it. Sylvie Medal has a ton of great videos showing her method. I love how she uses the Mono Zero eraser to erase thin lines to indicate highlights on the hair. This and drawing split ends as details are what I've started to implement more in my portrait drawings. I hope this video was insightful and hopefully inspiring for people who are getting back into or just getting into drawing. And if you're like me working on leveling up your art, you can check out my YouTube playlist on drawing tips, tutorials, and inspiration from other amazing artists on YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like, subscribe if you want to follow my art journey. You can also follow my work on Instagram, and I live stream art on Twitch every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Till then, hope you guys stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.